and welcome back to Dukascopy TV. Last up in the studio on this Monday, I'm joined by Roberto Falzoni of Dukre Asset Management to discuss the 2-year anniversary of the SMB Cap. Roberto, thank you so much for coming in today.
Nice to be here again, Natalie.
Now, as I mentioned, September does mark the 2-year anniversary of the Swiss franc cap. In your view, how successful has the SMB measure been? Has it achieved its aims?
Yes, 2-year anniversary. September is big month of anniversary, also 5-year anniversary of the Lehman crash. And probably this has been one of the consequences why the Swiss National Bank 2 years ago had to introduce measures and to cap the Swiss franc strength. I would say that they've been rather successful. I mean, 2 years ago we have been down to 1-to-1 almost parity against the euro. And since the decision to put the Swiss franc cap at 1.20, Swiss franc has been stabilized in a relatively narrow range between 120 and 125 against the euro, and let's say between 90 and 98 against the US dollar, which means that these measures have been accepted by the market. What I would rather say is that Swiss National Bank has been lucky in the last 12 months that ECB also took very strong stance to defend the euro, and which created or which simplified a little bit the job of Swiss National Bank of holding the Swiss franc against the euro, because in the first part of, let's say, this cap mandate, the accumulation of reserve by Swiss National Bank and the level of intervention was very high. I don't want to say unsustainable, but it would have been much more tough if the European situation would have worsened. With Mr. Draghi and ECB intervention, this has stabilized the situation, which create the best condition for Swiss franc to be stabilized. We could also take the other way around and say it has been stabilized but not really weakened. So we're just trading above the 120 level, but not substantially above the 120 level. But let's say this is another question.
When quizzed, the central bank have repeatedly stated that they have no intention of lifting the cap. And while the bank is under little pressure really to change this stance, realistically, how long can the central bank maintain this measure? Will we still be discussing this in 2 years' time, for example?
You know, the exit strategy is one of the big questions, not only for the Swiss National Bank, for the US Federal Reserve, we have seen that for European central banks. I mean, as of today, markets have been quite manipulated. If we come back to Swiss National Bank, of course, there is no urgency. They want to still keep Swiss franc stable, let's put it this way, against the euro. European situation has improved, but is not clear, it's not finished. So I think that they should be still keep the, let's say, this cap on, and I don't see in the foreseeable future any change in politics. Of course, whenever, you know, or whatever they are doing right now will have an impact later on. If you take the level of reserves of Swiss National Bank, they've been pretty stable in the last 12 months, around 440 billion. Swiss francs, but this is way ahead of whatever has ever been in the past. So they started at 20-40 billion in 2008, and now we are at 440 billion. 50% of it is in euro, 27 approximately percent is in US dollar, and they diversified in other currencies. Of course, this level of monetary creation could have an impact down the road if they don't have the appropriate exit strategy. Don't want to remember what happened after the crash of 1987, when there was a lot of liquidity put into the market, and we had the crisis then at the beginning of the 90s with interest rates rising very much, and the real estate crash. So I think that it's very important that Swiss National Bank, even if they keep this policy, they start slowly to think about how to exit this strategy, because you know, market manipulations they work in a relatively short period of time, but if they create conditions that are very far from what they should be, the final outcome can be worse than the original problem that they solved.
Roberto, in your view, does the Swiss franc remain overvalued?
Yes, I mean, Swiss franc, as far as I know, or as I remember, since I've been living in Switzerland, has always been overvalued. So the problem is not by how much, I mean, if it is overvalued, but how much, and if this creates, some real disadvantage for Swiss industry or Swiss economic growth. So if we take some measures that have been published by UBS, we could say that 130, 132 is the purchasing power parity. It's around 101 against the US dollar. Of course, euro is much more important than the US dollar, but we know that the Swiss economy is very diversified. So I think, yes, it's overvalued, but I think that this has always been the history. So it's more important that we keep, wherever we are, even if probably to simplify the exit strategy, if Swiss franc would weaken a little bit further, that would simplify the unwinding of these foreign reserves by Swiss National Bank.
And lastly, Roberto, we know that the Swiss banking industry is under a lot of pressure at the moment to reform, combined with persistent SMB manipulation, which this cap is really. What impact are these interventions, both internal and external, having on Switzerland's business and finance industry sector at present?
This is a very hard question. I mean, we all that are involved in finance and in Switzerland, we have been very big pressure in these last few years, and particularly all the measures and all the attacks that we had from around us, from Europe, from the USA. This put a lot of pressure on the banking system, which is going through let's say, painful reforms. It's true that compared to what was the crisis in 2008, Swiss banks, and especially, let's say, Swiss large banks, they could manage it, and they will probably be manage it better than a smaller or medium-sized player, where probably we expect some kind of consolidation. And it's true that very low interest rates, abundant liquidity, improving asset prices level gave Swiss banks the possibility to unwind their large portfolio of credits or bad loans, and to restore some good profitability. So I'm pretty bullish on Swiss banking stocks and Swiss banks, but overall it will be still 2 or 3 years of tough measures and restructuring.
Roberto, thank you so much for coming in. Always a pleasure to receive you into the studio.
Thank you, Natalie, and see you soon.
That's all we've got time for right now. Coming up tomorrow, though, I'll be joined by Journée Annecy, Bruno Estier, and another episode of Hollenbeck Unleashed. But for now, goodbye.